chair for the June 18th, 2014 DSU Council meeting. Are there any challengers? Going once. Going twice. Dang it. Okay, all right. All those in favor of appointing myself as chair, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Fantastic. Now, the thing that isn't on the agenda, but which needs to be addressed, is the fact that we don't have a secretary.
Oh, we do. Sorry, lovely.
Julie? Yes? I was like, that doesn't look like Julie to me. But you're gonna take minutes?
Thanks so much.
Would you like me to forward you the agenda so that you can take minutes underneath the relevant agenda items? That's what I thought you would like. What's your email address? All right, now that that's dealt with. All right, roll call. Good thing you just got here just in time. All right.
Is this picking up if I just speak like this? Is that better? Is that better?
Oh my gosh, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. All right, Ramses, Jacqueline Skiptunis, Mahbubur Rahman, Danny, Jen. We have regrets from Ali Caladine, Taylor, Dylan, Andrew Bucci, my apologies. Proxy for JD, present. Rebecca. Laura Evans. Kate Woods. Michelle Bernard? I can't read that, but she's not here. Giovanna? Jamel? Caitlin's proxy, Jada. Julian McGuire? Amelia McKenzie? Adrian? Hannah? You're a proxy, correct? You're a proxy for an entire summer. Yeah, so we've got you down as like the summer rep. Hannah? Allison Pesh? Daniel Smith? Enamoda Agata? Hema? Leah? Lee? Sorry, not Leah. Lee Staples? But not here, regardless. Okay. Emily Whelan? Scott Reed? Scott Reed. And Vishwa Patel? Okay. Now the unfortunate part, we have to check if we have quorum. Okay, we have. Oh, I didn't ask for Abby Barton. Sorry. Yes, sorry. I skipped right over you. So we've got 20 people here, which is okay. Yes, we have quorum. We're good.
we've got 43 people, but we don't have 43 people appointed, and it's a majority of members appointed, so we're safe. All right, perfect. Acceptance of the agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Are there any amendments to the agenda at this time? Rams.
Amendment to, please amend the item, notice of motion to an item for decision with the motion that was sent in the council.
Motion to change the notice of motion about the sub renovations to an item for decision with the same wording that was sent in the council package.
As this motion would require a motion to suspend the Constitution, is there a motion to suspend the Constitution on the table at this time? Moved by Jacqueline Skiptunis, seconded by Laura Evans. Rams, would you like to speak briefly in favor of why we would suspend the Constitution at this time?
Yes. As I explained, we are overruling the policy in our constitution, so we can vote on the decision today without requiring a 2-week notice. Informal notice was given at the May 20th meeting, but the formal notice wasn't. Tonight was supposed to be the formal notice. Hence, the amendment, the policies, we have to override the constitution to vote on this tonight.
All right. Would anybody else like to speak in favor?
I would just like to add that I'm motioning to suspend the Constitution because this was done, it's kind of an effect of something the administration had to deal with. They needed the time to get it done. They needed the time to make a decision for their committees to meet in order for this to happen. So it's not a very fickle suspension. It's something that's necessary if we want the project to go through.
And the reason why they have these, why they're having the provost and executive committee meetings is because they're actually investing millions of their own dollars into the project. And now, of course, at the last minute, they're like, okay, we would like to look at the plan before we approve the maintenance and scheduling, which makes sense. I just wish I knew about it when I presented the timelines to you a month ago. So.
Would anybody else like to speak in favor of the motion to suspend Constitution? Would anybody like to speak against this motion? Seeing no one, all those in favor of suspending the Constitution to allow for this amendment to the agenda, please raise your hands. All of those opposed? Any abstentions? As the vote is unanimous, the motion to amend the agenda to include the sub-renovations motion under old business has been added and approved. So we haven't actually approved that change to the agenda. We've just approved that it's okay to suggest that change to the agenda. Are there any other amendments to the agenda at this time? Yes, Rams.
Sorry, additional amendment. I'd just like to strike the appointments of the E&A committee and...
They've already been struck.
Thank you.
And the Advocacy Planning Committee? Okay, so that motion then is to strike the Advocacy Planning Committee. The other one was already struck because it wasn't actually in order when it was sent on the agenda. So there's a motion to strike the creation of the Advocacy Planning Committee. I would just like to note that the Advocacy Planning Committee creation did stipulate that this committee should have been created at the first meeting in May, but you guys should all be able to see the information document on that. Jen, would you like to speak as to why you would like to strike it? Jacqueline?
It's all right, I'd speak to it.
Yep.
We've been looking over the APC and the document kind of attached to it, and part of the problem in actually appointing the committee is that the mandate from when the committee was created isn't current enough. We dropped out of the federal lobbying organization that's consistently referred to in the first few points of the mandate. So we might require an actual change in the mandate of the committee in order for it to to be current and effective and appropriate.
All right, would anybody else like to speak to striking that from the agenda? Yep.
Roughly speaking, when will that committee be formed?
I should hope as soon as we get around to sorting out the terms of the committee. AKA, I couldn't give you an exact date right now. I would say next council meeting.
All right, would anybody like to speak against adding the advocacy planning committee, or against striking the advocacy planning committee appointment from the agenda? Can I get a runner? Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, I just think that, like, although it does mention it, it was clearly written before we had decided to leave CASA. The point of the committee is to review CASA. I think that's still valid as, like, reviewing things we have taken part in and things we haven't taken part in the recent years, and then that leads into what we will need to do ourselves. So I think, given the timeline this advocacy planning committee outlines, that we should have technically appointed people last meeting. That, I think it's putting it off further is kind of unnecessary for, like, what seems like a technicality.
Would anybody else like to speak against the advocacy planning committee being struck? All right, then Jacqueline, you can answer that, and then we'll vote.
No, I'm happy to actually strike the committee if there's an understanding that we won't be able to work with the mandate if not work within very specific constraints. I'm all for it. I'm totally fine with that. I agree with it. I just don't think we have a proper mandate, so I would feel pretty uncomfortable striking a committee on a mandate that I don't find applicable to the actual purpose of the committee.
All right. Are there any other amendments to the agenda at this time? All right. So first we will vote on whether or not to add the decision on the sub-renovations. All those in favor of adding the sub-renovations motion to the agenda as a decision item, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All right, that has been added. Next, we will vote on striking, as in, like, getting rid of, eliminating the advocacy planning committee appointment from the agenda. All those in favor of eliminating the advocacy planning committee appointment from the agenda, please raise your hands. Straight elbows. Straight elbows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All those in favor, or all those opposed to striking it, please raise your hands. Straight elbows. All those opposed to striking it, therefore in favor of leaving it on the agenda. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all those abstentions. Oh, sorry. All those against striking it, raise your hands. Straight elbows. That's not a straight elbow. Let's try. This is what a straight elbow is, guys. This looks like you're just chilling. Straight elbows is like this. So all those against taking it off, all those who want to leave it on the agenda, straight elbows, hands up in the air. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All those abstaining, hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 2 people who automatically didn't abstain, or automatically abstained by not doing anything. So with 10 in favor, 7 abstains, and 3 against, the advocacy planning committee creation has been struck from the agenda. All right. With that, we will move directly into, well, with that, the agenda is adopted. We do not have any previous meeting minutes to approve, so we'll move on into appointments. First one is the BOPS members. There are 3 positions available. Members must be non-council members of the DSU. The time commitment is 1 2-hour meeting every 2 weeks. Yes?
Point of information. I would like to know why the council minutes was added as an agenda item for today's council meeting.
The minutes have not yet been received from the secretary. And we have not had any response from our secretary, hence she is not here.
The Board of Operations positions were posted and interviewed by the nominating committee. The nominating committee recommends, I'm not going to be able to say some of these correctly, and I apologize in advance, Hussein Savji, Colin Charlton, and Farhan Raouf. Mahbub, would you like to speak to why those recommendations were put forward?
For the Board of Operations member, there are 5 student positions, and At present, we are nominating 3 students because 2 of them are returning for the whole summer. And we have a good bunch of applicants from different disciplines, and we had interviews for a couple of days. And full nominating committee, we would love to have these 3 candidates because I think they did well and they are fit for the job and they have the sufficient background knowledge and skills to serve as the board of members. So I recommend Hussein Sabzi, Colleen Charlton, and Farhan Rauf to the council for approval.
I don't need that. Oh, so weird. Okay. All right. Are there any other nominations from the floor? You must not be a council member to be nominated from the floor. You can be nominated by a council member, but you can't nominate yourself, is what I'm saying. Any other nominations for Board of Ops members? Going twice. Going thrice. Seeing no other nominations, and as there are as many nominees as there are positions, they are filled by acclamation. The Judicial Board Chair, there is one position available. The time commitment varies as the Judicial Board meets when requested. So some Judicial Boards don't meet at all, and some meet all the time. The Nominating Committee has no recommendation. Mahbooba, would you like to speak to why this is the case?
Actually, for the Judicial Board Chair, it's written in the Constitution that Judicial Board Chair must be a third-year student. So unfortunately, the applications we have for the Judicial Board members and the chairs, there is no third-year law student we have to recommend. So unfortunately, the nominating committee can't nominate anyone through the interview process. But we'd like to have if anyone we can nominate from the floor.
So are there any third-year law students who would like to be nominated from the floor?
I'd like to.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Christine Conrad.
Christine Conrad, do you accept the nomination? Can I get a verbal promise from you that you are indeed a third-year law student?
I will become September.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other nominations from the floor at this time? Seeing no other nominations, Christine, why don't you give us 30 seconds on why you'd be a great Judicial Board Chair before we acclaim you?
All right, I am a third-year law student. I think that gives me the requisite background information. I could interpret the Constitution if there are any matters coming forward. I think it would be a cool opportunity to see what it's like to be on a judicial committee and work with other students, see how the DSU operates a little bit more. And I'm a nice person.
Excellent, thank you. As you are the only nominee and there is one position, congratulations, you are the Judicial Board Chair for the 2014-2015 year. Moving on to Judicial Board members, there are 2 positions available. Again, the time commitment varies. The Nominating Committee has 2 recommendations, Liam Riley and Mary Brown. Mahbooba, would you like to speak to these recommendations?
For the Judicial Board members, we have lots of applications. Unfortunately, we can't consider some of them because we need to get the start of the Judicial Board straight away. Some of them were not available in the summer. So considering availability of the summer and we have the interviews, I recommend Liam H.O. Really and Mary H. Brown to the Judicial Board member.
All right. Are there any other, you must be a law student to be a Judicial Board member. Are there any nominations from the floor at this time? Are there any nominations from the floor at this time? Seeing none, and as there are 2 positions available and 2 nominees, Liam and Mary fill the positions by acclamation. Moving on to the Events Committee, there are a minimum of 2 council and a minimum of 3 non-council positions available. There is no maximum position. Theoretically, we could all be on the committee. The committee creates and implements student life activities in the direction of the Office of the VP Student Life and Council. Danny, would you like to say anything else about the Events Committee at this time?
Sure. Oh, here we go. All right, so the Events Committee is a committee that hasn't existed for the last couple of years. There is a note from the researcher that the committee was deemed unnecessary from council a couple of years ago, as majority of the events were coming on behalf of the VP Student Life and other folks, and kind of presented to council, and there wasn't really a need for a committee to oversee the events. I do think, though, this year that it's really important that we do allow for a participatory committee to oversee the events and the creation of events that happen around the university, as well as sort of develop somewhat of an audit of events and things like that of that nature to ensure that our events are accessible, our events are fun and exciting for all folks, and everybody is having their say in what's happening on campus and what's happening from the DSU. So bringing it back to council and allow for a group to be accountable to the council. So part of this group will kind of also look at this committee and make a recommendation to council as to what's necessary. Maybe by the end of the year they'll say it's completely unnecessary again. I don't know, but I think it's definitely important that we have a committee to at least chat about this stuff once in a while and set some goals for council moving forward. So I think that's all I'd like to say.
All right. With that, would anybody like to nominate either themselves or someone else for one of the council positions? Yes, Hema. We have a nominee in Hema Merdan. All right, anyone else? Yes, Mahboober? We have a nomination of Jamal Vargas. Jamal, do you accept the nomination? Yes? Just Jamal, there's only, I think, the one Jamal. And we have a nomination of Rebecca Hayworth. Would anybody else like to be on this committee? Going once? Going twice? As we have the requisite 2 members and there is no upper limit, all 3 of you are now on the events committee. Congratulations to Hema, Jamal, and Rebecca. Now for non-councilors, would anybody like to nominate a non-councilor to be on this committee? Yes, Taylor. Yes, you've got a question? Can we, yeah.
I'm just wondering for Danny if he's trying to get the presence of the Equity and Accessibility Office within the events committee and how that will work exactly. Because there was something kind of like that with some of the event stuff last year.
Yes. I met with them today, actually, and we spoke about this, and they're interested in being involved in various capacities, for sure.
All right, with that in mind, Mr. Coney, do you accept the nomination? No. All right, are there any other nominations for a non-council member? There is a nomination for Ute, who is not a councillor, he is just here as a proxy for today.
Sure, I accept the nomination. Sure, why not?
That's UYTAE. Between the 2 of us, my pronunciation, your spelling, we're going to offend everybody. This is going to be great. Okay. Are there any other nominations for a non-council member at this time? Going once? Going twice? As we are under the number of non-council positions available, okay, you are on the events committee by acclamation. At a future meeting, Danny may rustle up some more keeners to attend. All right. Moving on to old business, the sub-renovations motion as a decision item, moved by Rams Aziz and seconded. We need a seconder for this. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by. All right. Whereas the Dalhousie Student Union Building is in need of repair, upgrades in amenities and space for its members, and whereas DSU Council commissioned architects Linden Lynch to oversee the project till completion, and whereas a revised plan and project charter has been drafted by the DSU executive to commence renovations and expansions of the sub upon completion of the construction design. Be it resolved that the DSU Council approve the revised plans to renovate and expand the footprint of the sub, subject to approval of the Dalhousie Board of Governors and confirmation of financing details. Roms, as the mover, you have 2 minutes to speak to this motion. Should you so desire?
I sent a letter. This was the May 28th meeting. There was a letter explaining the motion as well. I don't know if folks had a chance to read. No? Nobody? Okay. So I'll explain it verbally, the motion. Essentially, what this is, I actually want to know, I want council to know what they're voting on. So here's the thing. This motion essentially is a validation of the project itself. Because if the DSU council were to, vote this down, essentially, that would essentially mean you don't want the renovations to happen. And that's a big conversation. That's a big conversation. So we should have that, if that's, people feel like that way. But at this point, we're about to finish detailed design and begin construction design, so actually draw the blueprints and everything. So what the phase we're at right now is that this. There's the letter. I'll just read it off. So basically, after the referendum, we went back to the architects and asked them to redraw the plans because people weren't happy about the price point. And there's a lot of work that went into the plans. People really liked the idea. They really liked a lot of the objectives. And so essentially, under this budget constraint, the architect was able to provide the vast majority of the features for half the price. Almost. And that was just great. And that's actually part of the process, the fact that we brought you something, you rejected it, you brought us something better. So at this point, this option does not require an increase in fees, and finance is being arranged at the university. So everything would be the same, and there's only one option now, which is the atrium. We can afford the atrium. There isn't any increase in fees needed for that. And the reason why is because it's been scaled back. And the plans are online, and they're also posted in the sub lobby for the past month. And so essentially, what that means is that these plans could obviously still change as we go along, but essentially you're like validating that the work that the architect has done is satisfactory. And then now that means now that you've approved it, now the university can be like, okay, the students think that this is a project worth pursuing. So when they look at it, their various committees, as I told you, they'll be operating in the context that this project has support. So in the future, and again, I'm also pushing to have DSU Council have the last vote before the construction even begins. And then neither of these votes were in the project timeline, and now they are. And so, because I don't want construction to begin unless DSU Council has the last chance to actually look at the project, because who knows? I mean, and suggest last-minute alterations, but also, if something happens, I don't know, in 6 months, they're like, yo, we have to cancel this project. Imagine, like, there's 4 years worth of work, but something happens because we discover oil in the building, or, something happens. So if something of that enormity happens, I still want council to have a say at the last time, just in case, any concerns should be brought up. So these are the steps that, I've really been, that's why actually have also caused, these were actually brought to the university. And so that's why the project timeline has been accommodated to reflect this change. So I can take specific questions around the motion if you'd like, but just wanted to get a bit of a background.
All right, thank you. Jacqueline, as the seconder of this motion, you may have 1 minute to speak to it if you wish. No, thank you. All right. At this time, I would entertain a motion to start a moderated caucus for a certain length of time with a certain amount of speaking times, if that is in order. If anybody wants to actually say anything about this. Yes? All right, a 5-minute moderated caucus with 30 seconds speaking times. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by the medicine rep, all right, all those in favor of a 5-minute moderated caucus with 30 seconds speaking times? All those opposed? All right. With that, how this works with me is you raise your placard, and Jen, I call your name, and Jen brings a microphone to you, and you have 30 seconds, and I count you down the last 5. So would anybody like to speak at this time? Would anybody like to say anything? Yes, Daniel. The architecture representative. And planning.
Just like I've been on council for like half a year. The only time I'd really heard about this was at the thing, so I never got to bring up like issues about like sex on campus and like what it means to us, because like we don't use the sub building. So I mean, all that money's going towards like doing things for students on that campus, and it's like, is it getting taken from us as well?
All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak at this time? Yes, Roms.
And again, this isn't like a Q&A, so I mean, I'm addressing the chair again, yeah, in this case. This levy has been collected for a very long time, since Mahbub, do you have I was going to say the 60s, I won't say Mahbub, get confirmation. But essentially, this fee has always existed, and it's meant for renovations to the student union building. Now, when it comes to Sexton, I actually have very juicy news, which I should tell you in private first, actually, before I release to council. But according, because we do see the need for additional capital investment in Sexton. Thank you.
As much as we all want to hear this juicy news. All right, would anybody else like to speak at this time? Well, with that, the moderating talk is over. So, seeing no other comments, yes? Sorry, would you like to speak, Jessica? Yes. Can we get speaking rights for Jessica, please? Yes, Danny.
Thank you. I only wanted to briefly say that sub renovations is a good thing. It's a good thing for the students at the university, which I believe in. Financing it is another issue. However, sending that to the student body is a good thing, letting the students decide on that. The only thing that I voiced before was that about having a safe space for the LGBTQ community in the society hub is really important, and having a space that actually works. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Seeing no further comments, I would entertain a motion to call the question on the motion at hand. Moved by Rams, seconded by the medicine rep. To be honest, I should technically be calling you all by your titles. So it's actually like good that I don't know all of your names, because I should be calling you by your titles. I should be saying the DSU president, but anyway. The motion has already been read out. Be it resolved that the DSU Council approve the revised plans to renovate and expand the footprint of the Student Union building, subject to approval of the Dalhousie Board of Governors and confirmation of financing details. Would all those in favor of this motion please raise your hands, elbows straight? All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? That motion passes unanimously. It was in a notice of motion, like it looks under notice of motion, item A. So just put it under there that it passed, and I'll deal with it later. Okay. All right. So yay. Moving on to new business. We have the Carleton Council meeting discussion, which I believe Roms would like to speak to now.
Yes. Thank you, Beth. Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
Madam, what do they call that? I don't know.
The reason why this is an item for discussion is because we are now here in the tea room, and thank you for engineering to recommend that. This is very nice and it's working out quite well. But now, the question is raised, what about Carleton? So is there energy? This is putting out to you folks, because we have actually given direction to our reservation manager to explore the option of having a council meeting at Carleton. So with a couple of options like that she's looking into, but is there energy, like, is there any, suggestions for space at Carleton? Is there any sort of recommendations? I want to get people's thoughts on that, if possible.
All right. Anybody from Carleton want to speak to this? I'm looking at dentistry. I'm looking at medicine. I don't think there's anybody from health professions here right now because nobody's appointed. Anybody else? So the question is basically, is there interest or desire from the Carleton student body for us to host a DSU council meeting on Carleton? Yes? Yeah? Yeah, sure? Yeah. Just to switch to...
Both.
Yeah, both. Is there interest and is there a space? There is definitely a space.
If just because I work on the Carleton campus right now, so I'm not, don't go there, but I work there. There's great video conferencing services in a ton of the rooms in the link. So maybe we could actually have the agricultural rep on council come to our next, or whenever the Carleton meeting is.
All right, interesting. Yes, graduate student representative, can we get Mike, please?
Sorry, I'm still getting used to all this. Just a point of information, and part of my ignorance, I'm still navigating some of the campus layout. Where exactly would this meeting take place in terms of Carleton campus?
Somewhere between Spring Garden and University and Roby and Summer.
We'll give everybody fair notice as to
But
exactly.
that's where Carleton campus is. Somewhere near the corner of University and Roby. All right. There's no question. There's just a discussion. So if there are no further comments to this discussion, we can move on to the next thing. All right. Elections policy discussion. All I have is the information about the elections policy that was last updated in March 2013, and then the Senate elections proposal that was given in 2014. Would you like to speak to this now, Mr. President?
Yes. So this actually is ties to let me give some context around policy. So we've had a backlog for about 4 years now, since 2010. And the goal, so I worked with our policy manager to come up with a policy review schedule for the summer. There are 3 rounds of policy review that council should be ready for, and also work actively with us on. And I'm also, the part of why I'm bringing this up is because I want to hear council's recommendations on the approach, and I also know here, I'd also be highlighting that your participation is needed very much in the amendment of these policies too. Because once you pass them this year, policy is only supposed to be reviewed once every 3 years. So they won't touch this like 2017, ideally. Elections policy has been here specifically is because, we've heard a lot about this policy. We've heard a lot of concerns about this policy. The catch with this policy specifically is that you can't amend this 4 months before the election. Right, so that pretty much puts us, let's say, November-ish to a reasonable time to make a decision. So that means we don't have very much time to have a, robust discussion at council. So we got to start now. So in our 3 rounds of policy review, elections policy is in the second round. So the first round is part of the notices that was listed. So we'll be sending out commissioner, we'll be sending out executive, we'll be sending out procurement, we'll be sending council and constitution, and we'll send that to the board of operations, and you'll have. You'll be able to provide amendments and feedback to that as well, to that policy. Now, in the second round, there's another 5, and the third round is another 5. But the idea is by August 20th, at our meeting, we'll have reviewed these policies and passed them, so they can actually be published online. For instance, council brought attention to the fact that committee policies are online, right? And so for folks to find out what committees there are currently and to actually see the descriptions, it's really problematic. The problem is the committee policy itself is 4 years old, and a lot of those committees are actually, well, the forms have changed. And we really need to take a look at that policy, because if you were to put it up now, people will be more confused than ever before. So it's definitely one of the emergency policies we need to look at. So the reason why I brought this up is to also get council's feedback, since we're having all policy being reviewed, and especially elections policy, this beast of a policy that's that we need to tackle this year. Would council be in support of let's say, an ad hoc policy review committee, or would council, because the current process we're taking is myself and our policy manager going through the policies, then sending to the executive for a review, and then we send them to ops, and then for your approval as well. But I'm conscious of the fact that this summer councillors may not be around, and it's their capacity issues, but I would love to bring people in on this, right? Because if it's something as simple as looking at the policy and then sending me recommendations, or actually meeting with me or being part of this committee, that's what I want to hear your thoughts on. So thank you.
All right, so basically what we're at now is whether or not we'd like to hear from you, Rounds. Mr. President, would like to hear from you on whether or not you would like to be involved with policy review in general. So it shouldn't just have been, it should have been policy review in general, not actually just the election policy. All right. So how you would like to be involved, whether or not you think an ad hoc committee of interested members or simply one-on-one meetings with Mr. Aziz would be best. Anybody who would like to comment, raise your placard, and I will call on you and you can comment. Yes, architecture representative. And planning.
I think it would be most useful if there was a committee and something written that I could then take to the people I represent and say, this is what the issues in it were, and this is their proposed. Do you have any alternate proposals? Are you okay with these? Just something that I can take to them and a written list of things that we're changing about them, unless it's like the whole thing is getting completely redone.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments at this time? Yes, Mr. Aziz.
That's very helpful, Daniel. Thank you. Because not only do we have a policy schedule that we will be sending council. In fact, we will also actually send a summary in case we don't have time to actually go through. Because yeah, we are like really doing something from scratch, right? So I mean, we'll do our best to be as concise with that description of what's changed. Okay. Thank you. And also do it in advance. You can actually consult and for the bigger changes, right? Especially around this. So.
All right. Does anybody else have any comments at this time? All right. Then before I move on, I would first like to ask, what's your name, sir? Yes, I have you down as somebody who exists. There you are. All right. And secondly, I'm going to need a proxy form from you at some point. All right. So with that, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with the current process. Last year, the executive reports were not read out. There was simply an opportunity given for questions if anybody had any. Is that still the process?
Sorry, I didn't. So I'd like to hear feedback from council. Ideally, this is what I was hoping for. And if council gives me some sort of buy-in or direction here, I'll make changes you request. We wanted to actually move the executive reports early in the agenda. So maybe after presentations, or because it's we have more energy then. Also, we also want but it shouldn't be that by the time we get to the end, there's so much that we're droning on and on about that you don't want to listen anymore. So I think it'll get people excited about this if you let them know what we've been doing about some of our initiatives. I would love to speak to them at council if people would still prefer that reading the reports on their own time and just asking questions. We can stick to that format. So.
All right, so with that, there are two options being proposed. One is to actually have the reports, actually there's three. One is to have the reports presented at the beginning of the council meeting. One is to have the reports presented at the end of the council meeting. And one is to stick with the format that has been used for the past year, maybe two, which is to have the reports at the end of the meeting, and then simply you get the chance to read them when you get the council package, and you can ask questions at this time. Does anybody have any questions or need any clarification on what those options are? All right. All those who, you can vote multiple times. All those who are interested in having the executive reports presented at the beginning of the meeting. 4 or 5. All right. All those interested in having the executive reports presented at the end of the meeting. All of those interested in having the executive reports be printed in the council package, and you can ask questions at the end if you want. That appears to be the overwhelming opinion. With that, are there any questions for President Ramzaziz on his executive report at this time? Seeing none, are there any questions for the Vice President Internal, Jen Nowelski at this time? Seeing none, are there any questions for the Vice President Finance and Operations, Mahbub Rahman, at this time? Ms. Skip-Tunis's report will be forwarded with the minutes of this meeting. It has been received, so it'll be forwarded with the minutes. And are there any questions for the Vice President, Student Life, Annie Shanahan, at this time? Yes. Yeah, if anybody has any questions for Jacqueline in general, in the absence of a report. The report is here. The report is here, and it is Senate Internal Affairs, External and Advocacy. There's nothing in here about the. Is there anything in here about the? No, the Advocacy Planning Committee. Yes, potential need to restructure the APC based on changes. So, is that sufficient, or do you want her to read this out? Okay. All right. With that, we move on to notices of motion. That is no longer a notice of motion; it's a past motion. There's the policy amendments motion, which is be it resolved that the amended and circulated commissioner policy, executive policy, constitution policy, procurement policy, and council policy be approved and ratified. These policies have not actually been circulated at this time, but the understanding is that they will be circulated before the next meeting. 2 weeks before the next meeting?
Sorry, not the next meeting. Either July 9th or 30th, we still have to work out the schedule with Bob's. It has to go to Bob's. So it depends on Bob's.
So now the conversation is?
Sorry, that wasn't actually on the mic.
Yeah.
It has to go to Bob's first. So and in fact, as we've as you've seen, this is one of the Bob's today. So when the policy review schedule gets sent out, it'll account for Bob's dates, and so we had wanted this to happen at the July 30th meeting. If we can actually hit that target with Bob's dates, and 2 week notice.
All right. Can I get speaking rights for Mr. Coney? Yes, from Taylor.
Wicked. If this isn't actually being used as a notice of motion for the next meeting, then why is it still here? Like, I understand why these things will be come up and be discussed over the summer and stuff, but if it's not actually a notice of motion for the approval and ratification of policy changes, isn't it out of order?
I would actually probably agree with that interpretation, that this does not actually constitute an official notice of motion because it references circulated policies that have not been circulated. So I would recommend that in the future this be re-noticed when an actual date is known.
This is very important feedback for us because actually this will be used to. I was going to say this will be used to educate not only us but everyone who works regarding policy at the union around what council prefers regarding and what our policy should be around how I guess policy should be amended. So, to my understanding, this is legal because, or this is in order because this is a notice, and in 2 weeks the policies will be circulated, and then after those 2 weeks, council will vote. So so this is a notice for the next meeting, so if the notice wasn't given today, it had to be given at the next meeting, which means we couldn't do anything until the meeting after that. So the intention here was, and I'm looking for feedback here because at the end of the day, I'll do what council would like me to do. So.
Daniel, or architecture and planning.
I just think it would be nice if we could sit down as council and like discuss what the changes were going to be and have a discussion over that, and not have to have a discussion over that and then vote. It's like have a discussion over that, then have the changes made, and then the next meeting just vote on it. Not discuss it like was this change made for this, what was discussed in council, and if all of those are yes, then or why not, and then change it then.
I think that at this point, what I'm going to say is that as chair, I'm going to rule that this notice of motion is in order, provided that the policies are actually circulated at least 1 week before the meeting at which they are going to be either discussed or voted on. If the policies amendments are presented less than 1 week before the meeting that they are going to be voted on, I would say that this notice of motion would not be in order.
I agree. Absolutely.
Does that addresses part of the issue? The other issue is that it seems like it would just be nice if the executive could perhaps give the opportunity for council to discuss something and then go back to their constituents and then vote at the next meeting.
Mhm.
Would that be what that I'm seeing some nods?
Mhm.
So unless there is any other comments on this,
No, thank you for that. In fact, that actually ties to a model we were exploring earlier for a three-step approval process. And so if you were to take that up again, again, we're more than happy to do that. Just the reason why the two-step process was brought up was because to get it done before September starts, because things are going to hit fan and we'll just be so busy with all kinds of other stuff. But at the end of the day, we'll do that. We'll stick to it and we'll see how far into fall we go. If it's just first couple of weeks of September, late September, that's fine. But yeah, I'll have something to report to you for the next council meeting for sure. Thanks, Dan.
all right. This announcement, I actually took the liberty of putting in the announcements, but I did not actually get confirmation from either the VP internal or the VP academic and external that this would happen at the next meeting. Is that the case? The Academic and External Affairs Committee appointment, will they happen at the next meeting? Yes. All right. So then there's an announcement. The Academic and External Affairs Committee appointments will take place in the next council meeting. One representative from each faculty shall be appointed, and the terms of the committee are below, so you may advertise to your faculties. Just so you guys are aware, if we tried to do this without any advertising, then if you were the only person here from your faculty, you would by default be the only person qualified to sit for your faculty. I'm sure many of you already have enough hats. With that in mind, as I see no other business, is there a motion to no? Nope.
It would be worth looking into your constitutions. I know that for some people, there's actually fitted into the constitution of your faculty who sits on this board. And so maybe it's not just a free-for-all necessarily for everyone, so maybe just take a look at that and make sure that there's not someone that's automatically appointed. And if there is, make sure that they're aware so that they can sit on the committee.
All right. Are there any other announcements that anybody would like to just generally announce? In general, Ms. Dempsey?
I only personally just wanted to announce the reason I'm not sitting on council tonight is because I have stepped down from being a member of being dialed specifically for medical reasons, and I didn't want student body or people to think that I've just up and quit. It's not actually the case. And I've been thinking very heavily about this all day and what trying to talk about, and so, I'll be around somewhat, but I won't be sitting on doing anything in any kind of capacity. So, and I thought I'd just go to the students of the university and stuff in the council an explanation. I don't specifically have to provide this, but also I believe the other Dallo, there's somebody else at Dallo that's going to replace the position. I've been thinking about all day what to say. For me, I'm not ashamed of providing the truth, providing students with the truth. I've always believed in making education more accessible for those who struggle. And I've been placed on medical leave till September. I would like to note the university and the TSU have been nothing but supportive. The university is working hard now on a trans project to help transgender students like myself. The university is also implementing a preferred name policy too. The policy should be available. It will be instituted by October. Hopefully they're advocating to have this running by September. Also, other students can put a preferred name into as well. Just another note on leadership. I wanted to say that President Richard Florzone, in my opinion, makes out the university a welcoming place. And the university is a place to be yourself, a place you should feel safe for all students, especially those who are marginalized the most. This is why you must continue the work which I brought forward to council. I am not only a trans student, but I'm also a student with learning challenges. And I could say it's hard for students at times. And our role is important, and what we do here really matters. I may or may not return in the fall, and I'll be in a better place to be able to help other people. Sometimes we need help, and it's okay to ask, but it's not always an easy thing to do. And trust me, I know from experience. So I just wanted to thank you for your time this evening and speaking. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there any other announcements? Oh, clapping. Maybe we should start clapping. Are there any other announcements at this time? Sexton Campus Director?
Just a request to all the counselors, if it's your first time in the tea room, please move around the tea room, have a look at what's there in the tea room. That's the bar service. That's how the bar service functions. If there is anything that can be made better, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Jamel's been working tirelessly to show the World Cup as many games as you want. So if you want a game shown here, just talk to Jamel and he'll make sure that's shown on that big screen right there.
All right. Are there any other announcements? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? You guys need to be more prepared.
I had to raise my hand. The thing is that they had meetings today around the summer bus pass with the University Administration. I gave them feedback collecting from medicine students and a bunch of professional students and graduate students. So I have updates for that. And also, there's been a 75% uptake of the bus pass thus far. But I hope the university is going to release more information around that. The idea is that I asked them to do a survey, satisfaction survey in mid-August. They've committed to that, so we'll help in the crafting of the questions. We want to see, like, if this was a project that students want to continue. If you have feedback around the bus pass from your constituents or yourselves, please let me know. We'll be reflecting the DSU page and also our communications around that feedback process. The second thing was I really appreciate the fact that about the trust that council had today about the motion in the sense that what we did today was like that clause in the Constitution is like a little like red button, that says like do not break glass, and I never ever wanted to break that glass this year. Wow, 3 months later, you gotta do it, right? So is this like, this is something that you are my bosses, and I will assure you that this is not what we set out to do. This is something we do. I mean, the fact that it's there in policy is meant to use emergencies. This was something you have to do. I assure you, and I want to give you commitment that the core values of this team doesn't align with this on a regular basis. So, thank you.
All right. Are there any other announcements? Are there any other announcements? No, I've got to call it now 3 times. I trusted you guys before, and now I've been betrayed. Are there any other announcements? That's the 3rd time. Seeing that, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Hema and seconded by Jamel. We can all depart now.